I got married 7 months ago and it was a traumatic experience for both my wife and I. At some point she threw her ring on the ground. For the sake of privacy, I will refer to my wife as Tanya. Also, it may be important to mention that we are an interracial couple. She came as an international student from Bangladesh and I am a white American. It started with my birthday just 2 months before. Tanya wanted to throw a party for me at this karaoke bar, a really thoughtful idea. Well, I wanted to invite this group of extended family that I spent a lot of time with as a teenager. They aren't technically cousins, but we always called them that. My parents grew up with their parents and it was a great time as a kid because the adults would get together for game night while the kids got to do whatever. I have only seen them a few times since moving out for college. They all stayed back and have families now. The 2 oldest ended up marrying my closest friends actually. I had issues with that in high school, but of course now I don't because I am an adult. Tanya did not have such a family-centric and fun childhood, so my thinking was that I could introduce her to them and maybe we could start hanging out again like old times. At the party I had a great time. It was pretty much what I wanted it to be. I saw Tanya talking with the women and I was catching up with my old buddies. We did cheesy karaoke and had an impromptu dance party. At some point a random drunk old lady fainted and had to be carried out on stretcher. Everyone went on like nothing happened. It was awesome. When we got home though, I found out that she did not have such an experience. She said that my oldest cousin, whom I will call Marissa, was not really talking to her at all and seemed to actively avoid communicating. I thought this was odd and unfortunate, but ultimately I chalked it up to nerves and meeting someone new. I suggested that we hang out again to clear up any misunderstanding, but Tanya would not have it. She started claiming Marissa as racist, and I could not blame her because people in my family have been racist in the past. Not to her directly for sure, but I have told her about some comments my grandparents have made, and how interracial couples haven't really happened in my family. It has been tricky to say the least. Anyway, I wanted to be on my partner's side with this, but I just did not see enough evidence in this specific case, hence wanting to hang out with only her and her husband. I was deemed as unsupportive and just as racist. I decided to drop it as the wedding was coming up and nerves were coming into play. Invitations were already sent out weeks before my birthday, and this whole group of 6 to 10 people were on it. They came with their 2 toddlers, 3 and 4 years old. Tanya did not initially want to allow young children, but I persuaded her against it at the time invitations were sent out because I have always seen toddlers at weddings and generally they are fun to have around. Well, Marissa's kid, just my luck, starts making noise in the middle of Tanya's vows. Tanya is visibly flustered and kind of rushes through them. I was giving her a look like, "It's okay sweetie, relax," but it all happened so fast. Dinner was served and we were dancing before I could blink. I went to the bathroom at some point and on the way back I got distracted by my buds for probably 10 minutes when Marissa joined with her baby. That took me out of the flow of the conversation enough to realize my newlywed wife was sitting in the reception room glaring at me. I absolutely agree that I should not have let myself get distracted for even a second. This was our special day and every moment is supposed to be shared together. However, what happened next was even more awful. Tanya stormed past me to the dressing room where I followed her and shut the door. She took her ring off, chunked it to the floor, and started crying. I apologized for getting distracted but wanted to get back out there so we didn't miss any more dancing. It felt like almost an hour later when another buddy of mine, a groomsman, knocked on the door to tell us he was heading out. That forced us to go out and say bye. The rest of the wedding improved greatly after that. Still, it feels like a nasty scar. I cannot help but feel that this really did not have to go this way, and none of this would have happened if she had trusted me in the first place after my birthday. I have a lot of empathy for her because she has had a tough time with female friends taking the spotlight from her in her childhood, but now I don't know what to do. This whole thing feels irreversible and is now a moot point. Should I still try to persuade her it was a misunderstanding from the beginning, or move on and live a life separate from this part of my family? Comment. I find it funny that Op says what happened next was even more awful. Correction to Op, this was the only thing that actually affected Op, therefore it is seen as awful. Nothing else was awful though. People of color often are. And it's not even necessarily because all the white people around them are racist, but because they don't have the experience to recognize subtle or casual racial that people of color do, because they've experienced it their whole lives and the white person has not. This guy is not paying attention to the knowledge and experience of his wife. She recognizes racism that he does not, and he isn't listening to her. Which he definitely should be about the racist comment made by Marissa when he wasn't even there. Why would you not listen to what your partner has to say about an experience you can't even argue against because you were not there? Exactly. I'm quite a perceptive person, but there have been a couple of times where someone's pointed out comments or reactions that they saw as racist / homophonic / etc. that I didn't even clock. My experiences are much different from a huge swath of the populations, but I just can't imagine telling someone that what they experienced isn't true just because I didn't see it or knew the person. I'd be so hurt if I was Tanya. I think all humans have possibly been guilty of that at some point. Dismissing the experiences of someone because we view it through our eyes and not theirs. Not just with racism, but all sorts of issues. Disability, medical problems, that kind of thing. I don't live in someone else's life, so who am I to try to diminish their experiences if they talk about being mistreated? I'm sure I have done that at some point in my youth. I think we all have. But as an adult, I try to learn and grow and listen to people more. If someone says that they are hurt by an experience, then it's a fact. Even if that same experience wouldn't hurt me, that's not relevant, because I'm not them. I'm sure I've also said hurtful things or been flippant, but the important thing is to not just learn from those mistakes, but continue to educate yourself and teach others and actively work against the bigotry. It also took me a while to learn that acknowledging past mistakes is the bare minimum, the work is the hard stuff that comes later. Yes. It's a learning process that comes from listening to different people talk about their perspectives and feelings and doing our best to try and understand. That's how you learn and grow as a human, by interacting with other humans and learning things about the world. I literally read the story 3 times to see what the racist incident was. He didn't bother to ask. It took a friend of a friend, who I kind of despised anyways, saying, "Do you not talk much because of your accent," to my boyfriend at the time, now husband, for me to instantly cut that chick out of my life. I don't tolerate that shit, and he should not have to endure it either. I never saw her again, thank God. Why can't this man stand up for his wife? Story 2. Husband of 5 years wants to change after I filed for divorce. I filed for divorce and my husband want to reconcile the marriage. We never had a good marriage and we've been married for 5 years. I say we started having major marital issues only 2 months after we got married. It's as if once we got married I didn't matter anymore. I made the sound decision to file for divorce, but only after doing anything and everything I could to save our marriage. I gave myself 2 years to fight for us and hope that me taking lead would influence positive change in my husband. No, he never changed. His family hates me. He always gossiped about me. He made me out to be the bad person for years. He never took accountability for his actions. He abandoned me after I gave birth to our kids. He didn't care I almost died when I attempted suicide. Our money became his money. My therapist, who was also his therapist at one point, said I was being emotionally abused. Even so, I humbled myself and loved him. I took accountability for the damage I caused. I got counseling, mentors, took a How to Save Your Marriage Alone class, marriage retreats, marriage conference, speaking life into him, staying in shape, lifted him up with my words, unsolicited apologies, never denied him sex, and everything else you can think of. Now after trying anything and everything under the sun to save our marriage, I made the sound decision to leave. At first, he said he wanted the divorce too because I'm unstable and unfit to be a mom. I didn't react, I let him vent and stood there silently. Then he apologized a few days later, said he didn't want the divorce. Then he said he did want the divorce and that he isn't my husband. Then he said didn't want he divorce. Then he changed his mind and said he did want the divorce because he can't be the man I need him to be. Now he's saying he doesn't want the divorce and he can be the man I need him to be. He told me today that he wants this family and want to change. He realizes the grass isn't greener on the other side. My husband has a history saying he'll change but never following through. And I do mean never. So of course I don't trust him. I'm afraid he'll go back to his old ways if I dismiss the case. Has anyone ever dealt with a spouse or BF/GF like this? I believe he will never change, but could I be wrong? Any suggestion to something I may not have done to save our marriage? Comment. You've spent 5 years waiting for this marriage to improve. In your own words, you tried anything and everything to make it work before finally giving up. And how has he responded? with insults, neglect, and behavior so generally shitty that even a therapist apparently came right out and said he was the problem. Even after you filed the papers, he couldn't take responsibility for things having come to this without lashing out. Which means this isn't actually him taking responsibility, much less sincerely offering to change, it's just his last-ditch attempt to get you to abandon this silly little campaign to stand up for yourself and a future that doesn't involve his nonsense. Don't fall for it. You're right. When he said he couldn't be the man I need him to be. He actually said it in front of the counselor. She asked him if he plans on dating or remarrying because his behavior will have repeated results in his future relationship, which will be failed relationships. He told her he wanted to be single. Doesn't help that my mom is super religious and keeps telling me I can't remarry if we divorce and God hates divorce. Which makes me feel like I'm wrong. I can't tell you how to manage your relationship with whatever higher powers exist, but personally, I've never been terribly motivated by the idea of future admission to a heaven run by someone who thinks you should have to grit your teeth and suffer a lifetime of petty tyranny to earn it. Don't listen to your mom concerning this. My bestie's mom's first husband was abusive and even sexually assaulted her daughters, bestie's half-sisters. She was super religious and felt she'd go to hell if she divorced. She finally had enough and looked at her mom, also super religious and didn't support divorce, and said, "I'd rather go to hell than spend another day with this man." She married my bestie's dad after that and has no regrets. You tried your best, he's not going to change, and he sounds awful. I would like to believe that if there is a God, who actually paid attention to our daily lives, that they would be proud of the genuine efforts you have made and would want you to move on and live a joyful life free of this person. Don't listen to your mom, she's not right. Do what's right for you and your kids. Let him be single, he will end up alone and miserable. Also, it would be better in the long run for your kids so they don't see mom miserable in a loveless marriage, and maybe when they get older see how relationships should be. If you find love again, that'd be great. Don't let people say God don't like divorce. How do they really know that? By people that wrote it, not God.